everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Amanda Ostrander. I am a teacher-turned-homeschool mom, and this is Raising A to Z, a YouTube channel all about homeschooling. And today, I'm talking about socialization. Socialization. I think every homeschool parent who has any experience in homeschooling will tell you this is the question we get asked the most frequently. What about socialization? Like, aren't you concerned about your child's socialization? Aren't your kids lonely at home? What about socialization? We get it all the time. We get it all the time. You know, whenever we're out in town or in public and the kids are supposed to be in school. Oh, day off school today? No, we homeschool. Oh, but what about socialization? We're getting ice cream. Oh, what a nice little treat. You guys, mom pulled you out for lunch break? No, we homeschool. It's just a normal day for us. Oh, but what about socialization? We're at the library picking up 45 books. Whoa, that's a lot of books. You guys gonna read all those? Yeah, we homeschool, so this is all the books for our unit study. Oh, homeschooling, great. But what about socialization? Like, it's a constant question. So people are very concerned. They're very concerned that my kids are lonely at home and have no friends. And that, first off, that's just not true. And a lot of homeschoolers will tell you that they're not concerned about their kids' socialization because, in fact, we do a lot of socialization. Our kids are socializing constantly. For me, in fact, I'm a little bit more of an introvert. I find the amount of socialization I do with my kids a little bit overwhelming at times because we're doing so much. I got an extrovert. Alexi's a bit more extroverted. So we gotta make sure we get enough for her. Like, it's a lot. We do a lot of socialization. Socialization is not a concern. And I'm going to tell you why. But before I do, why don't you guys subscribe and then click the bell to get notifications. I think when we talk about socialization, we've had a very different definition shift, especially in the past, so many years. I want to say like 30 years. We use socialization very differently when it comes to kids in school than we do in any other sense of the word socialization. So, for example, I always talk and not that dogs and kids are comparable, but when we're talking about the word socialization, they should mean the same thing. Hear me out. So when you get a brand new puppy, everyone tells you got to make sure you socialize your dog. Now, if you were to just take your puppy and just go to puppy class where they only saw dogs that were exactly the same age as them, 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever, 12 weeks, and that's the only dogs they ever saw, and then you went out and did stuff, that would not be considered socialization. No one would tell you, oh, your dogs are really socialized. You would have a dog that would be very high anxiety. You would have a dog that would be very fearful, possibly very reactive because they don't know how to interact with things out in the real world. That would not be considered a socialized dog. Just because you took them to puppy classes for 4, 6, 8 weeks and then brought them home would not be enough socialization. To socialize a puppy, you need to maybe do some classes and some direct training. Obviously, we have a very well-trained dog. I get the direct training part. But you also need to do a lot of experiences. You need to take them places so they can meet dogs of all ages and dogs that are young and that are old, that are big and that are small. You're also going to take them to encounter different things. People with umbrellas, people with wheelchairs or canes, people who wear glasses if that's not a thing in your household. You're going to take them to try different surfaces, grass and concrete, maybe gravel, water. Do you know how many people I know who take their dog and they were like, oh, they've never been in water before other than a bath. So they don't know what a beach or a river looks like, and the dogs are freaking out. You got to take your dogs to all these different places. Our dog, again, very socialized. We've done all this. We can take him into Winners with us. We've taken him into stores, Winners, IKEA. He's gone with us because he's been socialized. We've taken him. These are normal experiences for him. He loves them. And that would be considered really good socialization. He's very calm. He doesn't really get upset. He just kind of hangs out and walks around with us. That would be, by everyone's standards, a very well socialized dog. Correct? I think we can all agree that's what we're looking for, right? Then why do we take kids and put them in a room with kids their own age and say that's the only way to socialize them? We just said that's not how you would socialize a dog. Why are we doing that to children? And yes, I understand that a lot of parents, not only are their kids in school, they also have other activities and they do go to the grocery store and stuff. But I think we need to like talk about this in a bigger sense, that kids in school are graded. They're put into grades. They're categorized by the year they're born and by people in their neighborhood, which for many kids means those are the only kids that they see, are the kids who are exactly the same age as them and happen to live within a certain zip code or postal code. Does that necessarily mean you're getting the biggest age difference? Like, are these kids necessarily interacting with people of different ages and kids of different ages? Does this mean that they're getting influenced or introduced to people who are maybe different than them, from different social economic backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds? No, not necessarily. Depending on where you live, not necessarily. The idea that school has become our main socialization engine is A, false, and B, I think it can be very damaging. Like, our city is an amalgamated city. So we have like a bigger city center, but then there's all the little towns all around that are technically fall underneath the umbrella of our city. Each one has a school. So if my kids were to go to school, we have 2 choices of school within our town. One's French, one's English, but it would be all kids who fall under our umbrella of our little town. Let me tell you, our little town is very middle class and very white. That's all they would ever interact with. If that's who they went to see, that would be our entire town population. Very, very, very white and very middle class. So if we want to have a more widely accepted socialization, we sometimes have to get our kids outside of those very small confines of what is normal in our area. So we do go to town a lot, and we do socialization with other people and other groups. And like, for example, when my kids go to choir, half of our choir that they do is made up of new to Canada families that are not white and are not wealthy and came here looking for a better life. That's a very different experience, and getting to interact with those people is a very different and a positive experience for our kids in many, many ways. But that's not necessarily something they would get if they were going to their public school here. And that's just kids their own age, because they're in a choir with a similar, whatever, age 5 to 10. School shouldn't be our main socialization engine. It could be for some people, it could definitely be something to help boost that. But school is not where our kids should be getting most of their socialization. And that's something that homeschoolers stand very strongly behind. And the socialization in school is not always positive socialization. Now, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen in homeschool circles, because I've definitely seen it, but it's much easier to intervene with things like bullying and peer pressure and those kinds of things when there's a lower kid to adult ratio. So for example, when there's bullying happening in school, in a classroom, there's one teacher to 30 kids. If that teacher can't get to that kid or isn't seeing that kid or is distracted with all the other kids, it's much easier for that bullying to go unintervened. I have 2 kids. Whenever I take them to an event, I'm keeping an eye on my 2 kids. If something's going down, I'm A, much more likely to catch it because it's 1 adult to 2 kids. And B, I'm much quicker to be able to intervene with that. And because I'm talking directly from parent to parent, I find we have a lot less issues, right? With the school system and with kids in schools, well, there's so many barriers, you have so many privacy issues and so many that sometimes it's hard to get things figured out. So like when I was teaching, if there was an issue between one student and another student and one was bullying the other or whatever, and the parent said, hey, this kid's bugging me, well, then I have to go, and the parents aren't really supposed to talk to each other. I'm supposed to go and intervene and talk to this kid, and then I have to inform their parent, but I can't really tell their parent who their child is bothering, or like there's so many privacy issues that come up that it makes dealing with something like, hey, we don't call each other names, or we don't like use people's weights or the color of their skin or whatever it is that's become the pick on source of whatever we're picking on. We can't intervene as quickly and as efficiently than I can as a parent say, hey, your kid was doing this. Yeah, I'm going to deal with it on my side. You deal with it on your side. We're all good. Yeah. Okay. Like it's a much quicker and more efficient way to deal with it. And it tends to work out a little bit better. Does that mean that it doesn't happen? No. our kids still get, sometimes something happens and someone makes fun of them or whatever. So we had someone make fun of her the other day and she was hurt by it. And so we had a discussion and she was like, well, and what are you going to do next time? Next time I'm going to, tell him that it's not okay. Was it a big deal? No, whatever. But like, we were able to discuss that and deal with it much quicker than if, it was in the school system where she'd have to sit all day and sit for maybe a couple days before she was able to tell someone. I was right there. I was able to deal with it and show her how to deal with it and talk to her about how to deal with it. And it's just a much more efficient process. Now, like I said, bullying does happen in homeschooling circles. I've seen it happen. But it's much easier to separate it. So if there's a really serious issue, it's much easier to cut those kids out of your circle because they're not going back to class with them. That's the other thing. If kids are like getting really, really cruel or things are getting dangerous, it's very easy to pull your kid away from them and just like, hey, we're not going to go to this class anymore, or we're not going to do this. You're not having that person come over. We're not going to do play dates with this person anymore because they're being cruel and we're not going to set ourselves up like that. It's much easier and much quicker to basically protect your kids when you're not dealing with the like institution of school. If school is not where our kids are being socialized because they're homeschooled and they're not going there, where are our kids getting socialized? They're getting socialized everywhere. Because our school day is so short, I did a whole video on this. You can check that out. Because our school day is short, we have a lot of time. We have a lot of time to do activities and to go places and to interact with people all over our city and all over our town and to meet new people and to have classes and other things where my kids get to interact with people. They get to socialize with people. I would argue my kids get more socialization with a broader group of people and a broader group of ages and a broader spectrum of people than public school kids. And that's because they have the time to do that. We have that extra time every day because our school day is so short, and it works out really, really well that we can do those activities without that time constraint. Our kids do about an hour to an hour and a half of schoolwork per day, give or take, compared to public school kids who are doing 6 or 7 hours of school. And if you're thinking about, well, they're interacting with a lot of kids, remember, you've all heard this. You've definitely heard a teacher say, now is not the time to socialize. Now is the time to get work done. We're not socializing right now. You can do that at recess. Well, when your recess is only 15 minutes long, once or maybe twice a day, how much socialization is actually happening? Not a lot. It's a lot of sit in your desk, look forward, do your work. But there's not a lot of socialization that's happening in schools. On that note, like I've even heard of schools where the kids were so desperate to socialize that they were talking during lunch hour, and they were talking so much with their friends that they were not eating. And so the school implemented a silent lunch hour where half the first, I think they had like 20 minutes for lunch. The first 10 minutes of lunch has to be absolutely silent, and they're not allowed to talk to each other during lunch hour, because they're so desperate to socialize that they're talking and not eating. It's because schools are not places where socialization should be happening. Because our school days are so much shorter, my kids are averaging about an hour to an hour and a half of schoolwork a day compared to their cousins who are in school who are doing about 6 hours of schoolwork a day. Because it is so short and so efficient, we have so much time to socialize, and homeschoolers definitely take advantage of that. And so we do get to meet up. We have the time to socialize and have play dates. We have the time to go and run errands and meet people out in public. We have the time to go and spend a couple hours at a library or go to a seminar or go to different groups. We have that time to do that. And so a lot of homeschoolers do. So there's lots of options and opportunities for our kids who are homeschooled to socialize with other kids. There are the regular extracurricular activities that you can join in the evenings, after schools, and on weekends. Things like Girl Guides or hockey or soccer, choirs. There's all kinds of things where your kids can get together and get to know each other and participate in an activity. Those are still available to homeschoolers. After school activities are still available to homeschoolers. They make great socialization activities. We love them. But I've also noticed there's a lot of homeschool activities that happen during the day that are also fantastic for socializing with other homeschoolers and other kids who are homeschooled. So, for example, my kids do like a homeschool specific gymnastics class, which happens in the day. And so there are 2 age levels. And so I think Zoe's class is ages 3 to 6. And then Alexi's is ages 7 and up. Yes, 7 and up. And so they go off with their friends. They get to interact with a bit of a larger age group, and they get to hang out with different kids, and it's homeschool specific. All the kids who are there are homeschooled. And Alexi and Zoe have both made some really great friends from their homeschool gymnastics class. And gymnastics is not the only one that does homeschooling. I've noticed in our town, the YMCA runs a homeschool. They were running a homeschool basketball league. There are jiu-jitsu and karate lessons that happen during the day. Another place runs ninja courses. Someone else does art lessons, art gallery at the art gallery. There's a homeschool program that runs out of our science center, which is our kids do. So there's lots of like homeschooling activities where kids can get together and interact and socialize. And that's just classes. That doesn't account for things like play dates and co-ops, which are usually just run by parents, right? I'm talking like official classes. We participate in I have like 3 different groups that we interact with. We have one that's citywide, one that's kind of local, and then one that is like our church friends. And so we kind of like bounce between those different groups. So sometimes we do the local one, sometimes we do the citywide. If the citywide isn't happening, then we might like get together with our church friends and plan something different. So we have like a whole group of homeschoolers and different opportunities that are parent run that are not like official classes that you sign up with, but we can participate and interact with other kids. And so our kids are interacting a lot. They interact a lot. And that's just with kids. We can also say socialization doesn't just mean interacting with kids. It also means interacting with people of all ages. And so because we have so much free time, and we are personally very lucky that we have a lot of family nearby. Our kids are able to interact with their families a lot more than I would say a lot of non-homeschoolers are. So our kids get to go see their grandparents every week. It's part of our schedule. We get to go see both sets of grandparents, and we get to see, both sets of cousins, and we get to go see, we get to spend time with our families, and our parents get to take an interest in it and an educational aspect into our kids' homeschool lives as well. So my mother-in-law teaches my kids French once a week. She comes over and does like an hour and a half long French session where she plays games and sings songs and reads with them in French. Fantastic. My mom, when she takes the kids, does a lot of like arts and crafts kind of stuff with my kids, and they love it. That's like a whole different set of things than what I do. I'm not like a kids craft person. It's not my thing. I like handicrafts. I have a whole video on that. It's up here. Yeah, so that's just not something that I find any pleasure in doing. But my mom loves to do it, and my kids love to do it with my mom. So our kids are getting to interact and learn from different generations, and they're getting to interact with people who have different interests. And we also spend a lot of time with the cousins. So we have 5 cousins that live locally, and we see at least one set of cousins every week. Sometimes we see both. Sometimes we see them more than once a week. So our kids are getting a lot of socialization, and they're getting exposed to a lot of people, within our family. So we're building really strong family bonds within not only our immediate family, but our extended family. They're getting to build really great bonds with other homeschoolers in their communities, as well as other kids who are not necessarily homeschooled, but they're still getting to interact with them through like after school programs. And then they're also in the community more. So they're meeting librarians and cashiers and people who work at Home Depot and really good at putting indoors and whatever. Like they're meeting a lot of different people, and they're meeting them on a regular basis. And so that's really cool. So our kids, we don't have to worry about socialization. I will say one thing that I think was kind of a nice silver lining with the pandemic was a lot of people came to realize that socialization doesn't necessarily mean school. The conversation has definitely changed post-COVID. Like I said, before COVID, it was very, oh, you homeschool? What about socialization? What do your kids do? Do they ever leave the house? How do they have friends? Do they have any friends? Post-COVID, the conversation is very different. I say, oh, I'm a homeschooler. And they're like, oh, but what about socialization? Well, I guess there's lots of things for kids to do, right? Like homeschool kids, there's lots of stuff out there now, isn't there? I was like, yeah, do your kids do like activities and stuff? Or they have like a group that they hang out with? So that's kind of been this shift in the conversation, which I kind of really like. I think a lot of parents and a lot of people had to be creative and find different things for their kids when they were in the pandemic, and learned that there are a lot of options out there that homeschoolers take advantage of. There's a lot of parents who homeschool their kids just during COVID, right? So they were able to take advantage of these other things. I think it spread a lot of awareness that like homeschoolers don't just sit at home all day. We go out, and we go out a lot. So yes, our kids are homeschooled. Yes, they have friends, and yes, they are very well socialized. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, again, make sure you subscribe and then click the bell. If you want to see how we're socializing, make sure that you follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next week.